What's up, guys? Want to do a general video on AI. Just a lot of thoughts as far as investments, as far as the economy, and a lot of people feel like maybe they're getting left behind. And I understand that feeling with AI. And I was talking actually to Wiljaman out on DTube. We were in Discord and we were talking about this and how there's so much to learn, so much about AI. There's so much, what's going on with crypto. There's just a million things kind of going on. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll be watching YouTube videos at 2x, like literally chipmunk mode, because I'm trying to intake this information faster because I don't have time. And, it's, it's kind of one of those funny things. It's like you're just trying to like go through this so fast, like input the information, like almost like I need Neuralink or something like that because I can't keep up with the AIs. And it's like, how advanced are the AIs? So GPT-5 came out the other day, and I ended up buying it because I was playing around with it, like how smart is it, how much more advanced is it? And I ran out of credits. Essentially, you can use it for free for a certain amount of time and stuff, and then you're going to run out of credits. And I ended up buying it, working with it some more, and ultimately they say that GPT-5 Pro is like $200 a month. I didn't buy that. That's a little bit steep, kind of just for trying it out to see kind of what's up. But they say that it has an IQ of 148. Supposedly now, obviously the IQ test isn't kind of, exact and all that stuff like that. And you can say there's 7 intelligence or more. And, GPT-5 is not as athletic as me. So athleticism is a component of intelligence. And obviously emotional awareness, all these different things. So that being said, you're still better than the AIs right now. And I had to go through this process to kind of figure this out for myself because, as far as coding is concerned, there'll be certain points where like I get so excited and I'm like, this is cranking out code. This is great. This would have taken me a really long time to write this. But then you start to notice as it gets more complex, starts chasing its tail, starts hallucinating, chasing its tail. And then you're kind of like, man, that kind of slowed me down. Like if I would have actually just started with a code base that was already built out, maybe some kind of open source code that was already submitted, or maybe it was some kind of framework that was already built, and I started from that and then adapted it to what I needed, I probably would have ended up further along than where I ended up if I was just trying to use the AI. And, I once again sort of determined that with Chat GPT-5 that, in some respects I was still better than the AI. So you're still not seeing people that don't know how to code cranking out actually usable complex apps. It's always, if you notice a lot of these guys doing the review videos, doing the vibe coding, they will always be doing like a checklist or like a calendar. It's just something, I'm not going to say it's simple to program that, but that it wouldn't take time, but it's certainly not as advanced. You can't say like, build me a social media app that's like Snapchat, but do this and do that, and then it's going to just like crank out this thing that's worth $1 billion or something yet. Now in 6 months or 8 months, I don't know, but you do feel it on your heels that you're running from this thing and that you got to be faster than the machine. And it's like, okay, like, do I befriend the machine or do I just try to outrun the machine? And that's if you don't pull it off, I kind of feel that if we don't pull it off in the next 8 months or so, you might as well become Amish at that point, because it probably will become advanced enough that it's going to be hard to, yeah, can you do the work of 15 or 20 people potentially at that point? I do think so, but the competition is, it's going to thin out so much. Like right now, if somebody didn't know how to code, then you say, well, yeah, this is a better coder than them, or it could kind of build something if they didn't even know how to build a website or something. But then, as you kind of go up the ladder, it's like, what programmers or what people what graphic artists are actually more advanced in this. I'm actually more impressed with these AI models' ability to do graphic art. And some of the stuff, I've seen some new video stuff where you could literally kind of navigate around, and you could just give it a picture and you could navigate around in it, and it looked like you were in a video game, and it was like creating the video real time. Now obviously it takes a lot of power, you know, and it takes you know, a lot of resources, and you know, so I do think that you can extrapolate certain things from this. Obviously, like, you know, there's going to be a lot of electricity usage, there's going to be a lot of GPU usage, all this kind of cranking up. So then it's like, well, is Nvidia overvalued, or could you just kind of see this continue? And it's like China's like way ahead of us on power production. Their power outputs are way higher, and our, you know, our grid doesn't have as much capacity. Now, could you, you know, do, you know, more of this kind of stuff, you know, obviously like solar panels and stuff like that? Well, that takes a lot of energy and a lot of money, and then you're not seeing the return for 20 plus years potentially. So you know, it's just hard to kind of like strengthen the grid like that. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, by the time that ramp up happens and stuff like that, we may already be beat right now, I guess, on that front. That being said, what does the finish line look like? And we don't know what that looks like actually. For you and for me, you know, they could extrapolate and kind of extraordinary amounts of money. So, you know, it's like if you're able to kind of ramp up these projects, kind of finish out these projects, and do the work of 10 or 15 high-end graphic artists, coders, you know, all this kind of stuff like that. And it's just, I think that's the urgency and that's the pressure that we're kind of putting on ourselves, because we know once it gets so good that anybody with no coding skills can actually kind of complete the project. Because right now, if you kind of don't know what's going on, if you don't know anything about systems administration, you don't know anything about coding, you don't know anything about web development, and you don't have that sort of sorted out in your head, like how the infrastructure is kind of set up, you're going to be kind of lost. It's going to be hard to sit there and actually deploy something that's like usable. But at some point, like I said, in 6 to 8 months, we could be talking a different story. And you know, since it's a crypto related channel mainly and stuff like that, a lot of us in the ICP community have been, you know, waiting for them to roll out Caffeine AI, for instance, and a lot of people have been upset about the codes and the way they kind of put them out. I just think that they're probably having enough issues with what kind of resource allocation, you know, and how much is this going to end up costing them, you know, if everybody's burning all these cycles and people are using up all this electricity and they got all this kind of server time kind of racked up. You know, what does that kind of look like? So I think they're probably trying to assess that, and the AI is probably, you know, hallucinating and chasing its tail. So most of the apps, you know, in I don't know what percentage. I mean, it could be, you know, you could kind of work through it and everything like that, and maybe you know, eventually get something up and stuff like that. But you know, we've seen a lot of this stuff that's kind of you know, again, it's like kind of a mock-up, and the data is not really stored at a database, or it's not actually assessing that. Now with Caffeine AI, it's, you know, the information they're likely putting in JSON, you know, in JSON format or whatever, and it's on the canisters and stuff like that. And it'd be nice to see that. So a lot of us do not have access to it, and I'd like to see how they're dealing with data, and I'd like to see how they're dealing with files over 2 megabytes, and dealing with some of the kind of issues with that. Now, that being said, I do think I do feel the urgency, and I do feel the pressure. And I've told a few friends that maybe they're adjacent to crypto, or they kind of know that I've been in crypto for this long, and, you know, maybe they have never really kind of been in it that heavy and stuff like that. And it's just like, I need this right now for the next few months. I need it to count. You know, and I think a lot of you guys feel the same way. It's like you make it all the way to the end of the cycle. You got to make it count for crypto. You got to make it count with your investments. And we're just under, it's just a hyper competitive, globalized market right now. Now we're competing. There was a point where it's like, okay, we're competing with people on the other side of the world, and then now it's like we're competing with people from the other side of the world, and we're competing with AI, and we're competing with other people on the other side of the world using AI. So it is not getting easier, guys. And that being said, we're lucky, man. I'll tell you what, I'm lucky out here. I was running around in the grass, touching grass. I do sprints barefooted and stuff. And I just felt like a young chupacabra just running across this grass. And honestly, I'm lucky. I got a little bit of a utopia here. And at the end of the day, the thing that gives me kind of solitude, I guess, is if things got really, really, really bad, I have my health, and I would be able to just grow fruit and fish and just live off the land. So if it gets that bad, I'm good. I'll probably go to a beach and just be fishing and just eating fruit and all that. So all that being said, guys, keep plugging away. I looked back at the video and I was like, it was something like, oh, okay, you got 18 months, bud. I feel like now you got 6 or 8 months, because AI is really going to squeeze a lot of people, and these economies are really going to squeeze people. Realize that the banks have zero reserve requirement. Their money is not backed up by 1 minute worth of work. They want you out there slaving away. Their stuff's not backed by anything. The Federal Reserve is not federal, and they have no reserves. That's not going to end well. I don't know how far that can perpetuate itself. Surprised it's perpetuated itself this far. At the end of the day, it's not going to bid well on the citizens, because these things are set up with pawns and knobs. You have to have an expanding kind of tax force of more people paying into the system to prop it up and stuff like that. And the likelihood that we're going to really kind of have that in the next 10, 15, 20 years is just very, very, very unlikely. I just think it's going to kind of get worse. So do it now. You don't have time, crank out those ideas now. Use these resources before they actually legitimately do become better and smarter than us and displace us. Anyway, guys, what do you think about that? What AI models are you guys using? I'm using everything. Copilot, hallucinate, GPT-5, DeepSeek. I've messed around with all of them. So, and there's a lot more. What are you guys using? Anyway, follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam, and Twitter. Hive, D2, Blur, everywhere.